EDGs that left our facility. For the past 9 months, I have been doing human resources and payroll for the company. One of my favorite things about my job is the people that I have met and worked with. I am proud to say that I work for a company that is producing a renewable energy for a cleaner environment. I will talk more about this later. Granite Falls Energy is one of 19 ethanol plants currently operating in the state of Minnesota. Minnesota as a whole produces more than 1 billion gallons of ethanol annually. Granite Falls Energy is responsible for approximately 61 million gallons. We are permitted for 70 million gallons and have pushed the 63 million gallon mark in our operation. You may be wondering if ethanol is green energy. It most definitely is. Ethanol is a renewable fuel made from various plant materials, collectively known as biomass. It can be made from a number of different sources, including switchgrass, wood, sugar beets, and corn. Here at Granite Falls Energy and the Midwest, for that matter, we produce our ethanol from corn, which is readily available. Corn is raised on area farms, and we purchase corn from 12 neighboring counties to keep our operation running. We also grind around 66,000 bushels a day, or around 70 semi-loads. If that makes it easier for you to visualize just how much we are grinding daily. Our neighboring county, Renville County, is the largest corn producer in the state, growing 49.5 million bushels annually. Minnesota is also the 4th largest producer of corn in the United States, as well as the 4th largest ethanol producer in the nation, producing as much as 27% of the ethanol in the United States. Minnesota has more E85 fueling stations than any other state in the United States. Ethanol has helped to reduce our dependence on foreign oil and has helped to reduce the amount that you pay for fuel every time you fill up at the pumps. You can help support our industry by using higher blends of ethanol every time you buy gas. If you have an E85 flex fuel vehicle, you can run that on the E85 blend, which is the highest blend currently available to the general public. Many of the NASCAR race cars are running on pure ethanol to optimize their engine performance. Minnesota's biofuel market has been active for over 30 years, adding economic value to the state's large agriculture industry, creating new jobs and reducing air pollution from gasoline and diesel. Our state was an early supporter of ethanol with policies dating back to 1980. In 1986, the legislature created an incentive to keep and create ethanol jobs in the state through a 20-cent per gallon ethanol producer payment to Minnesota ethanol facilities. This payment resulted in a number of ethanol plants being built across the state to create an alternate use for our corn here locally. In 2003, the legislature also passed a blend mandate, and now 10% of the state's gasoline is replaced by ethanol with a current push for a 15% year-round blend. More than 98% of US gasoline contains ethanol, typically referred to as E10, it's 10% ethanol, 90% gasoline, to oxygenate the fuel, which reduces air pollution. Most of the energy embedded in ethanol comes from the sun via photosynthesis, and Minnesota's cornfields absorb a substantial amount of atmospheric CO2 each year. According to scientists from NASA, USDA, and nearly a dozen leading universities, the Midwest region of the United States boasts more photosynthetic activity than any other spot on Earth. The scientists noted that, in particular, that corn plants are very productive in terms of assimilating carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. The CO2 and solar energy absorbed by the corn plant is stored in its root system, stalk, leaves, husk, and the hundreds of kernels that make up the air. At the ethanol plant, some of that solar energy is converted into renewable liquid fuel that powers our vehicles. Some of it is turned into energy and protein in the form of dried distillers grains that serves as livestock and poultry feed. And some of it is recaptured as biogenic carbon dioxide that is used in dozens of consumer and industrial applications. We do not currently capture the CO2 at this time, but some plants in the industry are capturing the CO2. Aside from the solar energy provided by the sun, some fossil fuel, basically natural gas, is used in the ethanol production process. Minnesota's ethanol producers continue to use less energy to produce a gallon of ethanol than in the past. When we started back in 2006, it took us 4 gallons of water to make a gallon of ethanol. We have now cut that figure in half, only using 2 gallons of water per gallon of ethanol. We are unique. There is no water discharged throughout our site. We are the only ethanol plant currently in the state that can say that. We attempt to reuse as much of our water as possible. We use our storm water from the ponds within our process. The lime that is used to treat our water is in turn used to change the pH balance of soils to grow better crops instead of being discarded as well. So we do have the recycling effects going on there with our lime as well. Looking at gross emissions from ethanol facilities without also looking at the volume of ethanol produced gives an incomplete picture of the industry's energy efficiency gains and emissions reductions. For example, while gross greenhouse gas emissions from Minnesota's ethanol plants have increased 11% between 2012 and 2019, according to the EPA, the state's ethanol capacity has expanded 20% during that same period. There are 2 co-products of our ethanol process. These are corn oil and dry distillers grains, both of which are used as livestock feed ingredients. Our corn oil is hauled out by tankers and the DDGs are loaded out via truck and rail. An interesting fact for you is that back in 1908, Henry Ford designed his Model T to run on a mixture of gasoline and alcohol. He actually referred to this mixture as the fuel of the future. In 1919, when Prohibition began, ethanol was banned because it was considered a consumable alcoholic beverage, because they were comprised of a percentage of ethanol alcohol. As such, in spite of the many household and shop uses for pure ethanol alcohol, it, along with many whiskeys, wines, beers, and brandies, were taken off of store shelves and deemed unfit for human consumption in any form during Prohibition. For an entire decade, from 1910 to 1920, the primary fuel source in the United States had been corn-based ethanol. It was added in to increase octane and reduce engine knocking. So while advocates of pure gasoline argue for pure alcohol-free fuels, the oxygenated blends have proven to increase performance in most engines. And I can tell you from my own experience with using E85 that I have not encountered any engine issues whatsoever from it, and I fuel up with it all the time. Our industry has had many attacks from the big oil supporters, making it a very public debated political issue. They do not like the competition coming from our renewable energy. They do not like to replace a percentage of their gallons being sold by having to blend in another product due to the reduction in gallons that they can sell. It has been a very difficult and hard battle for our industry to challenge along the way. Corn-based ethanol is cheaper per gallon than gasoline, burns cleaner, and as of 2011 is no longer reliant on government subsidies. Plus, it is a renewable resource. Granite Falls Energy has a number of different occupations, which include commodity handlers. They take care of our grain coming and leaving, load out our DDGs by rail, load out the ethanol by rail. We have maintenance technicians that keep the plant up and running. If something goes down, they're on it right away to get it fixed and get us back into production as soon as possible. We have lab technicians that are testing our product. We have water treatment technicians, boiler operators, process operators, process mechanical, electrical, and chemical engineers, environmental safety management, and your regular business positions in finance, accounting, and marketing. For those of you who maybe aren't looking to further your education after graduation, or maybe can't afford to go on to college right away, we do have positions that we are willing to provide on-the-job training, such as our plant operator positions. There's a lot of variety in this job, and it is an entry-level position that does not require any experience. And these are great paying jobs. I mean, we're starting out at $21 an hour. So if that's something that appeals to any of you that will be graduating in the spring and you're in that situation, by all means, fill out an application. Our applications can be found at www.granitefallsenergy.com or stopping by our main office. And we also have opportunities for summertime work as well, doing grounds maintenance and various jobs around the plant for high schoolers looking to find a meaningful job. If this is something that interests you as well, contact us for more information about that. We'd love to have you come on board. Does anyone have any questions?
All right, thank you, Luanda. And if you come up with any questions for Luanda, you can also ask them in the breakout rooms. Sound good, everybody? And are we ready to hear from Kurt Vosek?
Backside of your sheet has his name. So if there's anything that comes up with Kurt, he's gonna talk about municipal wildlife management. I did write down all the different jobs she talked about.
With me 1 second.
Imagine that.
You just want his office.
Very nice.
Excuse me.
Oops, I think I gotta share the wrong screen there. Are you seeing anything?
Yes.
See your desktop, I think.
Yeah, we can see your desktop, Kurt, but nothing else.
Yeah, I'm trying. Shoot.
Just
Oh, there we
reread
go.
that.
Hold on a second.
I didn't make Terry's.
I'm sharing the wrong screen. Oh, shoot, sorry. There we go. Now you got it? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
We can't see your screen yet, though.
you don't. Would you see anything?
Just the meeting.
Okay. Now you got it.
Now we got it.
Got it.
Ah, perfect. Sorry about that. So my name is Kurt Vosek. I'm an area wildlife supervisor with the Minnesota DNR. So as you know, Minnesota has a lot of diversity in its habitats. If you go from the south to the north, you have the prairie grasslands, the deciduous forest, the coniferous forest, and the tall grass aspen parkland up in the northwest. So because of this diversity, there's a lot of critters running around in the state, and it takes a big agency to oversee all that. And that's where the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources come to them. Our mission is to work with Minnesotans to conserve and manage the state's natural resources, to provide outdoor recreation opportunities, and to provide for commercial uses of natural resources in a way that creates a sustainable quality of life. So basically you have society plus economy plus ecology equals a lot of green jobs. In fact, we have over 3,000 employees throughout the state working in 6 divisions: enforcement, ecological and water resources, forestry, lands and minerals, parks and trails, and fish and wildlife. And to keep those 6 divisions operating smoothly, we have an operations section as well, and they handle the administration, the human resources, and our minute, which is, the IT folks. So they're working behind the scenes and getting a lot of good things done too. So that first division we looked at was enforcement, and most people refer to these folks as game wardens. In the business, we call them conservation officers or COs. They're the ones out there enforcing the hunting and fishing regulations, but also trying to protect our waters, and they do help other enforcement agencies with other like speeding tickets and stuff like that too. But on average, they start out with a salary of $65,000 to $87,000 a year, and there's 185 of them throughout the state. You have basically one in every county, if not more. So the next division was ecological and water resources, and we affectionately refer to these folks as the bunny huggers. So they deal with the non-consumptive users. So you have scientists working on things like loons, pollinators, the monarchs and the bumblebees, taking care of the endangered species, folks out there doing water monitoring, permitting for waters permits. So we have 400 folks in this division, and there's 38 distinct programs. So quite a diversity of professions in that section. And then there's forestry, and these are often referred to as our tree huggers. So they're out there evaluating forest for timber harvest. They're helping with wildland firefighting. They help private landowners with forest management. And we have 20 stations throughout the state. And as you can imagine, most of those are in the forested regions of the state. And then there's kind of this oddball section. It's called the lands and minerals. And it's what I call our realtors and our rock hounds. So you have folks out there buying state land. We buy it for wildlife management areas. We buy it for state forest. We do leases, we do easements. You have our geologists, we have climatologists on staff. And these are some of those folks are working with the mines to do permitting for the bigger mines and stuff throughout the state. And then there's a Parks and Trails division, and most people refer to them as the park rangers, and I believe Terry will be speaking next, and she'll be talking about parks. And then my favorite division of all is fish and wildlife. There's two sections. There's the fish section and the wildlife section. The folks in the fish section are often referred to as fish squeezers, and the folks in the wildlife section are referred to as duck squeezers. And that's what I am. I'm a wildlife manager for the Appleton Area Wildlife Office. And I cover Big Stone, Lock, Pearl, and Swift counties. There's 3 staff. There's myself and 2 assistants. And the ecological folks, or the bunny huggers, they handle the non-consumptive users. What I primarily deal with is our clientele are what's known as the hook and bullet crowd. So as you can imagine, we deal a lot directly with those wildlife critters, and that's kind of the fun side of the job. There's some of this stuff, like in every summer, we'll do some goose banding where those geese, they molt their flight feathers so they cannot fly. So we round them up and put leg bands on them. And that way we can see where they're going, how long they're living, and kind of keep track of how those things are faring. And if you're as excited about geese as this one volunteer was, you'll go out and get a tattoo on your bicep to commemorate the event. And that is my son in the other picture. And so we do use volunteers every summer for this project. And another thing we'll be doing here shortly will be avian influenza sampling. In case if you're not aware, just to the south of us in some of the southern states, there's an outbreak of avian influenza right now. That's going to be moving north with the spring migration. And so we're going to be needing to monitor that, not only because it impacts our wild bird populations, but more importantly, it could impact the domestic turkey and chicken facilities throughout the state. So what we do is find concentrations of birds, we bait them into shore and come back the day or a couple days later and actually take poop samples with almost like a COVID swab. And that way we can analyze and see if there's a presence of avian influenza in some of these wild flocks. And so if you're interested in collecting poop swabs with us, we might be needing volunteers for that too. In August, another fun thing we do is what we call our August roadside surveys. So you get up on a sunny, dewy morning just before the sun comes up, and we drive the roads for about 25 miles, and we count all the rabbits and turkeys and deer and pheasants we see. And this is primarily done just so we can keep a running index of how our pheasant population is doing from year to year. And then in the winter, we need to keep tabs on our deer populations. So we do winter aerial surveys with a helicopter, fly the area, look, find where the deer are yarded up, get a good number, count of the deer. And it's kind of like a subsample. We don't fly the entire area, we just fly parts of it and get a subsample. And that way we can keep tabs on our deer population so we know how many doe tags to issue for hunters in the fall and try to manage our population accordingly. So that's kind of the funner, more glamorous stuff we do, but mostly what we do is focus indirectly on managing that wildlife, and that's through habitat management. And again, we're in that prairie area, so the focus of habitats we look at are wetlands, prairies, and agriculture. So in my 3-county work area, I oversee 81 wildlife management areas, or WMAs, and they encompass about 30,000 acres of habitat. And that seems like a lot, but it's only about 2.5% of the work area. Most of the rest of that is in private land. So I do work with private landowners in managing habitat on their own land for wildlife as well. So here's speaking of the prairies, here's the image of Minnesota. On the left, everything you see in yellow was historically tall grass native prairie. Everything in red is what we have left. So it's less than 1% of our prairie remains. And so you've heard of the demise of the Amazon rainforest. That's really nothing in comparison to what's happened in our own backyard. In fact, the tall grass prairies are the most endangered ecosystem in the world. And so we're serious about trying to take care of what we have left and build on that and create more. And so to do that, we have a combine that specializes in harvesting native seeds, or seeds from native plants, I should say, from the prairie. And, if we can't get it all with the combine, then we send our kids out there and hand harvest it. And I'm just kind of joking there. We do hire or use volunteers to hand collect a lot of the more rare species of plants and get those seeds. And then we can put them in a broadcaster and spread them out and enhance the prairie we do have and recreate new prairies where we can. So once you establish those grasslands, those prairies, you got to take care of them. They need a disturbance to remain viable. So we do that with either burning, grazing, or haying. And then we also end up doing quite a bit of tree removal. And this can be controversial because people often say, well, you're destroying that habitat. And it's while we're getting rid of the trees, we're actually enhancing the prairie habitat. If you let those trees go, they overtake the prairie and you lose all those wonderful species. And again, we have less than 1% of that prairie left, so we got to take care of what we have. And historically, we didn't have hardly any trees around here. And so all those birds and those pollinators, they rely on that prairie. So we do tree removal work to do that. And this is what we hope to have in the long run on those prairies, is a diversity of flowers and grasses that attract the butterflies and everything else, and songbirds. And then again, there's the wetlands, and a similar story to the prairies in Minnesota. If you look at that top image of Minnesota, you can see kind of the blue, gray, blotchy. That's historically what we had for seasonal or shallow wetlands in the state. And you look at the image below, and that's what we have left. So we have fewer than 10% of our seasonal wetlands remain on the landscape. We have a lot of the deeper basins still in place, but those smaller, shallower basins are pretty much gone. And so when you lose those seasonal basins, you end up with more and more erosion. And, you know, we've lost those basins due to development for housing and farming. And it is what it is. It's an impact on that landscape. So with that erosion, then comes degraded water quality. And, you know, like in Lock Parle County, there's the MPCA reports are out, and there's not a single body of water that's not impaired. And so again, my focus is on trying to do what I can to restore those wetlands and improve the ones we have. So we try to do that with, again, either restoring the smaller basins or some of these larger basins, improving them by putting in a water control structure where we can pull the boards in those structures and slowly drain that lake, and then put the boards back in. When we drain it, it consolidates all the sediment in there. It kills the carp and the bullheads, and it allows new vegetation to grow. And if we can't put a structure in, we'll even bring in heavier equipment and pump them dry. And again, it's just temporary drying them up. We're not doing it permanently. We just do it temporarily. And then we also deal with a lot of invasive hybrid cattail that will choke out some of these smaller wetlands. So we have a helicopter. We'll spray cattails to try to control them when we can. So in the end, you want, like up in that upper right-hand corner, you want that clear water with that consolidated sediment on the bottom. And I know those plants might look icky, but those are very beneficial plants that help filter that water out there. And then on the left there, you have a wetland after we've drawn it down and reflooded it with lots of good vegetation. And then the end result is a key attractant to our waterfall. So that's just kind of a sample of some of the things we do. Again, I've mentioned a few spots there where we're looking for volunteers. So if you're interested in helping out in the summer, you can help out with goose banding. You can help out with the seed harvest that we do and help restore some of those remnant prairies. You can help with tree control, where we'll go out with hand tools to remove some of the trees on the prairies. And I should mention, there are areas where we do plant trees, like along the rivers and stuff too. So sometimes we're looking for help planting trees and shrubs. And we have a program called the Adopt a WMA program, and some of the YES teams might be interested in this. You can contact a local wildlife manager in your area, work with them, and you can basically adopt some of the local WMAs near your school and do some of the upkeep on those WMAs, keep the parking lots clean, keep the signs up, help with the maybe like thistle control or tree removal, that kind of stuff. So, and I often have students job shadow every year. So if you want to hang out with me for a day, I'm happy to do that. And I spend most of my time at the computer now, but I promise we'll do something fun in the field if you come and do a job shadow. And then if you go into this career and you go to college for it, we do hire interns for duck banding and some of our shallow lake monitoring and stuff. So that's all I have. You can ask some questions now, or we can wait till later, I guess. Thanks.
Thank you, Kurt. That was very informative. Do we have any questions? Just a reminder to my teams, you can ask questions in the chat if you don't feel like speaking up, or we do have our breakout sessions too. To ask questions. All right, are we ready for Terry Dennison?
Good morning. Did my camera come up?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh boy. Now let's see. Camera's right where I can see certain things on here. So let me see if I can find. So what can you see? Can you see my screen here? My PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes. Cool. Okay. Good morning. I stepped in a little. What?
It went away now.
It went away?
Yep. Now we just see your computer. There it is.
Okay, I left it
You
on
might
my
just
other
wanna-
monitor then. I have to leave it over there, huh?
You might have to.
You can see it full screen?
Nope, you'll have to press present.
Okay. Or slideshow.
That works. Yep.
Yeah.
From the beginning. Perfect.
Okay. I decided I didn't listen in on the other ones. We have actually 3 days worth of interviews coming up for the assistant manager at Big Stone Lake State Park. And so I'm kind of swamped, but I'm going to start with answering some of the, working through the questions that we were given to try to cover with the students. First of all, my name is Terry Dennison. I work at Lackaparle State Park. I'm the manager. We also oversee Big Stone Lake State Park. And so that park is fairly remote to here. It takes a good 50 minutes to get up there. And so I really rely on that assistant manager position. And so should be interesting. We're down to 3 candidates. Anyway, so question number 1 was give us a brief overview of what your company does and one thing you like or value about working there. I didn't hear the beginning of Kurt's presentation, and I don't want to repeat everything that was said there, but I work for the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. A lot of folks don't realize how varied our department is with the different divisions. And so the division I work in manages Minnesota State Parks and Trails. And he works with wildlife, and then there's probably 7 or 8 other key divisions within the department that have pretty much totally separate focuses. Sometimes people don't understand Minnesota State Parks are part of the Minnesota DNR, but we are. So I work for the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. I have for over 40 years. I started out in the Division of Forestry. I was a technician way up north. That was managing forest land basically for pulper boards, a lot of swamp, a lot of mosquitoes. I want to, if anybody wants to complain about bugs down here at some point in time, I'll talk about bugs up there. But standard boot was a rubber boot, and I got absolutely no responsibility to make decisions in that position. I was given a list of things to do, and so I'd go out and cruise timber. It would get sold on auction to loggers that would go out and log the sites, sometimes in the summer, but mostly in the winter. Manage those sites when they were being logged. So you run the lines, you evaluate the timber all the way through. And then afterwards, you make sure that the site is coming back to timber of some sort. So we really gave it no regard to what was growing on the ground. So I look back now with some of the focuses. I volunteer with a native orchid project, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But I look back at that and I go, we completely changed the ecosystem when we were in there, taking those trees that were sucking the water up and using it to just completely changed that world without even paying any attention to what was on the ground. And I know things have changed a little bit since my time there, but I took a step into a different position with the department because I wanted more responsibility. And so I applied for a position within Minnesota State Parks, and I was at Upper Sioux Agency State Park for over 20 years. As things go, it's all about the bottom line, isn't it? And so when my position was supposed to go seasonal down at Upper Sioux Agency State Park, I applied for Lac Parle State Park to keep my year-round position. So here I am. I still live in Granite Falls. And it's an umbrella for Big Stone Lake State Park because that's a seasonal park. What do you wish people knew about your company? We are a large organization. One of the things a lot of people don't understand is that the DNR is a regulatory agency in many cases, but that we don't make those laws. We may be able to suggest and recommend things that be put into law, but it's legislature that puts things together into law. And so when there's fishing regulations, hunting regulations, and all of that, that is, I hear some bad mouthing about the DNR from time to time, but that is not us making those laws. Let's see. Describe how you define a green job and its importance to your company and yourself. Minnesota State Parks is kind of the people part of the DNR. We're the ones that talk to the public. They come to our front counter. We go out and meet them and greet them in the park, try to answer their questions about many varieties of topics, everything from hunting and fishing regulations to what is that frog, by sound. There's just many things out there. So we get people outside, hiking, camping, fishing, hunting, birding, botany, pollinators. We want to get people connected so they care about their environment. The department as a whole manages large tracts of land for habitat. And I'll get into that a little bit with the PowerPoint. Kurt, I know, touched on quite a bit of that. Lac Parle State Park actually is a very small parcel of land within a much larger land base. And so we're more about the education and connecting people, getting them outside and getting them recreating. Examples of green jobs. Wow, I mean, the DNR is such a large agency that I'm just going to encourage people at that point. We'll look through the PowerPoint and show people how to get into the careers part of our Minnesota DNR website. And I really didn't go into that a whole lot. You could get lost in the pages and the descriptions of jobs. I have to give an example here. We have a lady that's working with us this summer on a research project up at Big Stone Lake State Park that is out researching and surveying lichens. If you've ever looked at lichens on rocks. Yep. So very cool. Describe workplace experiences your organization may offer to high school students. This is going to be a little bit of a downer. Due to the equipment that we operate, the state park really does not hire youth. To operate a pickup or a mower, you'll need to be 18, as it's a safety issue for us. We have a very high priority in safety, as we want our staff to go home to be able to be with their family and friends when they're done with their shifts. And that's a huge change in the last 10 years. But they found that a lot of accidents happen with either young people or retired age people. I will offer that we have a number of dedicated volunteers that help us with anything from trail maintenance, bluebird box maintenance, pollinator projects. Like Kurt was talking, seed collecting. We've done that with the Master Naturalist program here. I also have offered job shadows. However, my position is mostly administration. So it's not like you can really show that very well. And so what I end up doing is I talk through my job responsibilities as far as that administration staff supervision, record keeping, revenue accounting, budget work, and project planning. And then I take them on a tour of the park and show them what our resource is and try to talk to them in the larger scope and see what their interest levels are, where they'd want to be in the future. And that's what we go with. Okay, I also talked to them about what they would need to have for requirements for education and experience and about their resumes. So I'm going to run through this slideshow here. Let's see if I can figure out how to do this. There we go. The Division of Parks and Trails. Did you guys have any questions? You're all on mute. You look like you're awake anyway. The Division of Parks and Trails vision is to create unforgettable park, trail, and water recreation experiences that inspire people to pass along the love for outdoors and to current and future generations. Lac Pearl State Park does have a focus of, we're in a hunting and fishing niche up here. And so we do try to do the archery in the parks program. We try to be very well versed at hunting and fishing questions because they do come our way more so than at other state parks. And this kind of shows our map of the state parks and recreation areas in the state. The Minnesota DNR Division of Parks and Trails manages 75 state parks and recreation areas, 8 waysides, 56 primitive campgrounds, over 5,000 campsites, a variety of cabins, yurts, and even teepees. 4,500 miles of water trails, 3,000 water accesses, of which we do lower Lac Pearl Lake, 360 fishing piers and shore fishing sites, and 1,300 miles of state multi-use trails. And then I repeated that slide. Would you like to work for us? So there's a variety of positions. So I just wanted to show folks how to get into that. So if you go to the Minnesota DNR's website, and this is a copy of the first page that you come to, you would see on the left that there's a career button on the left-hand side of the page. You're going to click that button, and you're going to end up seeing this at the very top part of it. And you'll see that there's a number of categories on the left. And then you'll see the bottom of the page looks like this. And in the middle of this page, you'll notice this blue button that says apply for a job. This is the bottom of that page, and it talks about the variety of positions that are available in the Minnesota DNR. It starts off with some, I don't know how many young white males I've talked to that want to be conservation officers. And I'm just going to say we are short of conservation officers. So please go get your law enforcement certification and go get the training in resource work so that you can be, because we are lacking about half of our conservation officers right now. People want to be in the northern part of the state and not so much out here. So we're really lacking those conservation officers that will stick to this area of Southwest Minnesota. Fisheries and wildlife specialists, foresters, wildland firefighters, lifeguards, and watercraft inspectors. And then it goes down to talk about state park folks, ecologists, building maintenance people. I didn't get into that with the page about the numbers of things that are managed, but here in the park alone, we have over 20 permanent buildings. 3 of them are historic, so they all require maintenance and care to keep them up as we're expected to do. And then of course, when you're dealing with budgets and staff, you need accountants, you need people that do budgets, people that will help people with their health insurance questions, and architects, engineers. There's just a whole host of different positions within the DNR. And so here we click on what's open, apply for a job, and you can get into the page that talks about the positions that are open. You see on this one, it says State of Minnesota Careers website. And then it'll take you to this where it talks about if you want to just search for jobs now, if you're a current employee and looking to get into something different. And then for folks that might have hearing disabilities or something, there's an accessible portal. Any questions so far? I am going to get into a little bit more about positions, but I thought I would talk a little bit about the park here for a minute. This relates to green. Lac Pearl State Park is about 1,000 acres in size, and it's named after the lake, which is in Dakota, the lake that speaks. Many people think that it's because of the sound of thousands of geese who migrate through in the fall. However, it was named for sounds that would echo in the valley. Many people think the Dakota village that was located down here at the foot of the lake, that they could hear the voices echoing. And that's why they called it what they did. We're clustered with a couple of smaller parks in the area. That means that our staff is shared when it's needed, especially after storms and for prescribed burning. Like I said, we're about 1,000 acres. We have 76,000 people that normally visit the park in the summertime. And then we have about 13,000 overnight guests. Our upper campground is actually what we're known for. I call it shade challenged because there's not a lot of trees up there. It's a prairie habitat. And so the trees that are there are still fairly young, and but you can fit anything people can legally take down the highway. So think of those RVs that stick out this way, that way, up, down, and they're really long that you see going down the road. They fit in our campground, where many, many state parks have campgrounds that were designed back in the 50s, and you can only take a 22-foot camper in there and blah, blah, blah. So it's a lot of people like it. We have full hookup sites, but expect that when it's 95 out, you'll be using your air conditioner because it's very shade challenged. This is the map that I was kind of talking about earlier. Way down in the bottom right-hand side, you'll see Lac qui Parle State Park. We're just that tiny green spot right at the foot of the lake. And all the greenland up further on the lake is all Lac qui Parle Wildlife Management Area. So we are nestled into a much larger public land base. And I encourage people to get out and explore that. It is not managed for recreational trails, and so people need to have a map in hand before they go. We also have a lot of avid fishermen that go out on the lake. It's not a very deep lake. It's part of the Minnesota River. And then, of course, we have ICANN programs in Minnesota State Parks, and the one that we really get into is the archery in the parks. We have our own set of equipment here. COVID's kind of messed that up a little bit as far as scheduling. And back onto the jobs. So as I said, we have a number of positions open right now. So I picked a couple of them that are directly related to here. We have 2 of our front counter positions that are open, part-time, seasonal. So only during the summer months, every other weekend, all summer long. And it is handling revenue at the front counter, moving campsites if people need to move or shorten their stay, or selling nature store things. So those are key front counter positions to us that are open currently. And then these are one of the things I want to talk to the students about is resumes. With the state of Minnesota, if your resume doesn't include the minimum qualifications for the position, the resumes could very easily just get weeded out right at St. Paul at the HR level. And so it's really important when these guys go to look at the job postings that they pay attention to the minimum qualifications and put anything they would have in relationship to that on their resumes clear. They can even use the same verbiage. And then preferred qualifications are kind of the bonus if you know that, if you use state parks and you're familiar with the rules, policies, and facilities, any record keeping skills, blah, blah, blah. Always looking for good employees. We also have my right hand is, he was on a work out of class and he just promoted up to Malex Cathio as the assistant manager. And so here's minimum qualifications for the technician position. And you'll see on this one that there is education requirements for that one also. And then the preferred qualifications for that position. So it's just extremely important if you're working with students, if they're applying for positions within the state of Minnesota, to look at those postings and make sure those things are included if they have them. And this will also tell them if they're looking at education in the future, what they need to aim at to be able to get into some of our what I'll call higher level positions. How am I doing for time? Am I okay? Yeah.
You can keep going. Otherwise, you can continue in the breakout rooms when we go in there as well. If there's a couple more things you could talk to each group about.
You want me to finish
Either
this
way.
quick?
Perfect. Go for it.
Okay. So we do have prairies here. We're in the prairie part of the state. And so Big Stone Lake State Park, we actually pulled off a 380-acre burn there a couple of years ago with wildlife staff help. All those homes along the lake and the highway on the north side. And then we normally actually try to burn pieces in smaller, 40, 60 acres because of the insect populations and not wanting to annihilate insect populations that could be rare or endangered that we don't even know about. And so prairie needs to be managed, as Kurt was talking about too. And so that's something we like to do in the spring. And it brings forth all the forbs. You will never see things bloom as beautifully as right after a burn, the year after the burn. It's like fertilizing the prairie. And so, as you know, pollinators are a huge focus for everybody right now. The monarchs, they're questioning putting them on the endangered species list, and the bumblebees any of the native bees are being looked at very closely to see how what we're doing on the land is affecting them. And these are it's just another picture of some of the flowers that bloom at Lac Parle. And monarch tagging. I don't get to do a whole lot outside of the office besides go see what's happening with projects and stuff. So I volunteer a lot of time doing a lot of different things. And some of those things are the monarch project. We grow monarchs at the state park, not COVID because of parts of our building were closed during that. But we've raised over 250 healthy monarchs for educational purposes in the past. I've done bumblebee surveys here, if anybody wants to talk bumblebees. The ball cactus project up by Ortonville, I volunteered last fall again, probably over 100 hours to collecting ball cactus seed. It's an endangered cactus that grows in the Minnesota River Valley. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about that you guys might be interested in is Anoka County has some wonderful videos about groundwater. And I go into the classroom at Yellow Medicine East, into the 5th grade classroom. I actually got to go in for one session this year. Last year was virtual. This year, the other one I did was virtual. But it's all about the Minnesota River and the health of it and how some of the pollutants are getting in the river because of our major land uses and what we can do and what students can do to try to prevent the sediment, the bacteria, and the nutrients from getting in the river. We can all play a part in that. And Anoka County has these wonderful videos. So I've been talking to the Yellow Medicine County Soil and Water. Actually, it's the One Watershed, One Plan, I think it's what it's called, funding that they could hopefully have more of a farming focus on that so that we can have win-wins. It's not a blaming thing. It's how can we do this better so everybody wins? And it's putting wetlands back. It's protecting our groundwater. And it's trying to reduce the flow, slow the water down from all our local rivers because of the erosion. 41% of the banks of the river is what causes sediment. 41% of the dirt in the river is coming from bank sloughage. And so working with them for a video. So if the kids want to be involved in that, that's actually a conversation I just started with Jolene, the watershed zoning office. Okay, I think I'm done. Let me see here. Oh, another soapbox. I also am a sub-permittee with the Raptor Center, and almost 50% of our local eagles have lead poison in their systems, and it's probably about 1/3 of the ones that I go catch, get in a box, and try to get over to the Raptor Center that they end up euthanizing because they're high lead levels. And so please make sure that you're using non-lead options for both hunting and fishing. That's it. Okay.
So I have a quick question about what watershed you're in. What watershed are you? And
so I worked at Upper Sioux Agency State Park for over 20 years. So I live by Granite Falls, and I like to play in a kayak on both Hawk Creek and Yellow Medicine. And so I've seen what's happened to the rivers down there. And so I'm more connected to those rivers, and that's why I work with the YME school district. But what these videos can do, what I have high hopes for with these videos is that they can talk about these subjects so that any instructor, any teacher that wants to could pick these up. We could match them with activities that are hands-on. When I go and do the groundwater presentation, I do edible aquifers, so the kids get sugar. Different layers and showing the aquifers and showing how pollutants can get down into the aquifer, and then they get to eat it. It's ice cream, it's Oreo crumbles, it's gummies, it's pop. It's anyway. So here we would have the watersheds of, we're kind of odd here because the lower part of the lake has Lackapaw River that comes in from the other side. But my main focus would be the Minnesota River and what ultimately is happening to our namesake river, even this far up the watershed. So many counties could get involved in this process if they wanted.
Oh, I cover many counties, so maybe I'll get a hold of you after this too.
Yay! So Jolene is the one that I talked to, but I followed it up with Anoka County. They did a special project with their one watershed, one plant. I'm naming that right. That's where they got their money from, and they worked with a design artist to do the video. So go look at them, do a search for groundwater videos online, and Anoka County will come up, and they're wonderful videos about groundwater that I've used more than 1 year already. So anyway.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we are going to go into some breakout sessions really quick. So each school will have a chance to talk with our presenters and ask them questions about their jobs and what they learned today. So I will get you guys all into breakout rooms. So hold quick and then accept the breakout room when I get you there. Okay. All right, you should be able to join them now.
All right, it looks like everybody made it back. Are there any final questions, comments that didn't get asked in the breakout rooms? I want to give you guys that opportunity right now.
I mean, I kind of want to hear the end of Kurt's polar bear story, but
Well, you can stay on later if you want, or I could share it with everybody if you want.
Raise your hand if you want the polar bear story.
Looks like you get to give it.
Well, yeah, Joe was asking, or the students were asking some crazy stories in wildlife, and I did a master's. My master's degree was up in La Perouse Bay, up by Churchill, and we had a remote camp that was set up on an island on the Mass River and surrounded by just by a single strand of electric fence. And whenever a polar bear was spotted out on the tundra, it was like a tornado drill. Someone yelled, "Polar bear!" And then everybody would you'd come out of the buildings, and we had ladders to get up on the rooftops. So you get up on the top of the building, and then you had we'd have shotguns up there with cracker shells, and a cracker shell just launches an explosive out. And yeah, so you'd yell polar bear, everybody get up to the top, and you'd watch the polar bears come in. And like if you were cooking dinner, they could smell that from miles away and they'd be attracted right to the camp. And you'd let them walk right into the camp and get to that electric fence, and they'd be standing in water. And the electric fence was low voltage or low wattage, but very high voltage. So they get a really sharp snap, but it wouldn't kill them or harm them. And they'd be standing in water and they could smell that fence there, and they'd stick their nose out and they'd lick that fence, and you could hear the crack from the rooftop, and you could see their knees buckle. and then you'd launch the cracker shells and start yelling at them, and you know, they run off across the tundra. And that way, when we were out away from camp and, you know, doing our research, and a polar bear would approach you, and they always did, they were always very curious, then hopefully they were conditioned to where you could just yell at them and scare them away that way. So yeah, a lot of good polar bear stories up there.
That's
So kids, if you want to add conditioning polar bears to your resume, hook up with Kurt.
Yeah. I still have some cracker shells too.
awesome. Awesome. I am so thankful for you guys joining us today. Thank you, Kurt and Terry and LaWanda. And of course, Kelly and Krista, because they put this all together with the help of Deb and Shelly Kay. And I just want to encourage you guys to get out there, look for green jobs. I know some of you are going to the healthcare field, but we can, most jobs are going to be considered green careers here shortly within the next 20 years. So please make your connections with Kelly and Krista. They are your work and learn coordinators. They can get you set up with job shadowing. I did on your worksheets, I do have the links to get a hold of the DNR website, get on to Granite Falls Energy. And I just want to encourage you guys to go out there and look at what you can set yourselves up to do. And I want to make sure that I can provide you these tools. Yes, can help you get into these green careers. And thank you.
Thank you.
All right, just one last thank you to all of you for helping get all of this said and done. Oh, Kelly and Krista are still here. But yeah, thank you guys so much for helping me. This is my first workshop I've ever done. So this was actually a pretty big milestone for myself also. But yes, thank you so much.
And how do you feel it went?